Hi, Devin from DCON here, and Apple has always been a forward-thinking company. They were among the first to give us a truly smart phone, and then have the courage to remove one of the most fundamental ports on that phone nearly a decade later. They were the first to give us only one port on a consumer laptop, and then they doubled or rather quadrupled down on that idea by going all USB Type-C on their MacBook Pro line. But all of this forward thinking is what makes Apple, well, Apple. They think different, manufacture well-machined devices, and in turn this allows them to charge a premium for said devices. Sometimes this forward-thinking approach doesn't always work out, but more times than not it flips the tech landscape on its head and causes every other manufacturer to react. This forward thinking is a philosophy usually applied toward the development of new products, but there's one product in Apple's lineup that's a bit of an anomaly: the iPhone SE. Apple took an old, aging design and injected new life into it by implementing the latest internals. The hardware was impressive, and it still had that same great flagship feel, but it was actually affordable for the average consumer. To me, this is the perfect example of Apple thinking different. To create an affordable solution from already existing parts is something that no other company's really done before. But what if Apple took this ideology and implemented it into their MacBook line? What if they took an old, aging MacBook design and injected new life into it, all while making it affordable for the average consumer? For this hypothetical MacBook SE to exist, it must have three things. First, it must have that nice flagship feel that we've come to know and love from Apple devices. Secondly, it must have the latest internals, and last but most importantly, it must be affordable for the average consumer. Now that we've laid the ground rules down, let's take a look at some old aging MacBook designs to see which one fits that SE mold. My first inclination was to grab the first MacBook I ever purchased, and that was the black MacBook. But I think this is too old of a design as it had a plethora of issues and overall just lacks that flagship feel we're looking for. Next is the second iteration of the MacBook Air. For me, this was nearly the perfect laptop. It had great processing power, a great keyboard, great trackpad, it was thin and light, and the battery could last you all day. But that screen though, it's so dated, and that alone makes this a bad candidate. Then lastly, I thought about the 12-inch MacBook. This is the one with only one USB Type-C port. For me, the perfect laptop has 5 essential things: a color-accurate display, an excellent keyboard, excellent trackpad, excellent internals, and an all-day battery life. The 12-inch MacBook has 3 of these things, and the other 2 cannot be addressed because of how thin the frame is. This leaves us with one option: the 2012 to 2015 MacBook Pro design. This checks 4 of those essential boxes, as it already has a beautiful Retina display, a classic MacBook keyboard, a Force Touch trackpad, and the battery will last you all day. Let's take a look at that last box, the internals, and let's start with the processor. While there's rumors that Apple may go toward AMD processors in the near future, as of now it's purely speculation, and I'll only be considering Intel chips for this hypothetical MacBook SE. And I think the 10th generation is the obvious choice. Not only is this the latest processor from Intel, it's also being used in the current MacBook Air. Comparing the i3, i5, and i7 variant of this 10th generation chip, we can see that single-core performance is nearly even across the board. This makes that Intel i3 chip a more desirable option, especially considering it's more than likely going to be in that baseline model. And since this MacBook SE will be geared toward the average individual, their workflow shouldn't be too intensive, and this Intel i3 chip should be more than enough. The Intel i3 processor isn't as impressive in terms of multi-core performance, and this should be expected as it's only a dual-core processor, whereas the i5 and i7 chips are both quad-core processors and should handle those more intensive tasks easier. In terms of the rest of the internals, DDR4 RAM should be implemented, and both the RAM and solid-state drive will be soldered onto the motherboard. Rounding out the internals is the inclusion of Bluetooth 5.0, as well as the latest 6th generation wireless from Intel. And it wouldn't be an SE model if it wasn't affordable, so all of this would have a starting price point of around $799. This would undercut both the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro by $200 to $400, and even though it's a cheaper option, it still has that nice flagship feel and it has the latest internals. But going cheaper does have some drawbacks, however. Unlike the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, the MacBook SE is the everyone's option, and it doesn't cater toward a specific audience. It's not powerful enough for professionals, and it's too bulky and lacks the battery life that the MacBook Air provides. While the ports are more diverse, they would lack USB Type-C and overall just feel a bit archaic. And even though the display is still gorgeous by today's standards, the bezels would return to being very thick, which would make the overall MacBook look even more dated. With all that being said, a few MacBook staples would return, and I'd be so happy to see these return. But most importantly, for the first time ever, Apple will be introducing a MacBook at the sub $1,000 price point, and this would open the door to so many more consumers. The once unaffordable Mac would now be attainable for the individual who can't afford a $1,000 or more MacBook. And this would be Apple thinking different once again, not only from other companies, but also from their past philosophy on the MacBook front. And they would have the opportunity to create something truly special. Is this something you guys would even want? Would you buy this over a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro? Or is this impossible altogether? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. It's been nice. If you've enjoyed this video, send me your likes. If you've enjoyed my content, send me your subs. I'll see you next time.